Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. In our first story, the OP decided to take petty revenge on his neighbors, who at some point began to cross the line, and he didn't like it. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. You care about my lawn so much, you can have it. So I live in a largest city about a mile from the biggest university in the state, U.S. My street is right next to the block that's basically mini Seattle. So there are a ton of quirky little shops and restaurants and bars and such. This means that half the people that live on my street are college students like myself, and the other half are pretentious hipster couples or wealthy families. My next-door neighbor somehow manages to nail the worst parts of both stereotypes. The first time I met her, my brother and I, whom I live with, him and his wife, were sitting on our porch at around 11 o'clock at night, smoking our tobacco pipes, celebrating the new house. We were chatting quietly at a respectful volume when her and her husband pull into their driveway. The houses on this street are old and very crammed together, so her driveway was directly adjacent to the porch. We hadn't met any of the neighbors yet, so when she walked up to us, we just assumed she wanted to say hello. My brother said, "Hi, I'm Brother, and this is OP. Nice to meet you. We just moved in." She looks at us as if he didn't say anything at all and said, when is your landlord going to come and mow your lawn? It'd be great if you could get that done as soon as possible. Thanks." Our lawn really wasn't bad, hair ratty but perfectly presentable. Plus, we just moved in and hadn't had time or the money to go to the store and purchase a lawnmower, then walked away and went inside. Brother and I shrugged and just decided to avoid bothering her. We didn't hear from her at all over the winter, but we got random complaints pretty regularly about noise on days we weren't around, mountains of dog poop in her yard, we have a chihuahua, not even remotely possible, and passive-aggressive notes left on windshields of cars saying they would call the cops because our bumper was 6 inches into the sidewalk. We also became friends with their tenants that lived in their basement unit. Apparently, she's just as rude to them, not repairing things in their unit, etc. Just all-around unpleasant person. The final straw for me happened yesterday. She stopped my friend as he was walking into my house and again asked when the lawn was going to be done. Keep in mind, this is our lawn. This has nothing to do with her property, like at all. I just got done with finals, mechanical engineering and CS. I was absolutely wiped and hadn't gotten to the lawn yet because I was taking a couple of days to recharge. So when I finally got around to the mowing and trimming the lawn today, I was kind of ticked. If you've ever used a trimmer, you realize that it throws clippings in a pretty consistent direction. So as I trimmed the lawn, I made sure that all the clippings were sprayed onto her driveway. It wasn't much, but it's the thought that counts. And our second story. Turnabout is fair play. Jehovah's Witnesses can be annoying to deal with. My in-laws turn off the lights and hide in the back room to avoid them. Other responses I've heard of vary anywhere from slam doors to yelling and screaming. For the most part, the only impoliteness comes from the attempted converts, not the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves. If you're trying to spread your beliefs and grow your church, being cruel or even impolite is a poor way to do it. Thus, most Jehovah's Witnesses are both eager to please and polite to a fault, all in the hopes that you'll listen long enough to join up. In the other corner's my dad. I've never met anyone as calm as my dad. Someone can be screaming in his face and he'll just calmly stare back with just a hint of a smile on his face and still try to logically argue his point. He has a very logical mind and absorbs facts through study with ease, as long as it's something he's interested in. Now, my dad is a Christian, as am I. He's read his Bible cover to cover dozens of times and could readily hold his own in debates with the greatest religious minds. He's willing to discuss scripture with anyone who asks. A few months prior, Mom had answered the door to a couple of pushy Jehovah's Witnesses. They left their literature and promised to come back. I guess they thought Mom was an easy mark. Dad worked afternoons, so he wasn't home at the time. Several neighbors complained about the pushy attitude and how these specific Jehovah's Witnesses wouldn't take no for an answer, wasting their time. In fact, during Sunday school, Dad and a friend of his discussed the Jehovah's Witnesses, and that they would really like to talk with them and set them straight. One fine June morning about 9 a.m., we got a knock on our door. Dad answered, and to his delight, it was the two Jehovah's Witnesses, and so began the slow revenge. He invited them in, saying that he was really pleased to see them. They sat down, and Dad began to discuss Jehovah and the Bible with them. At first, he played the fool, offering easy targets for the Jehovah's Witnesses to shoot down or agree with. I was watching from the relative safety of the other room, but I could see the eager expressions on their faces. This could be a new convert, an easy mark. As time wore on, their faces grew less and less eager. As Dad moved into discussing points in their doctrine, they began edging towards the door. As they stood, Dad stood. He made no move to open the door for them, however, and continued asking them questions, unwilling to shove past him. They merely stood and answered, hoping that maybe this would lead somewhere. Time wore on. Bored with the conversation, I went outside to climb a tree in our front yard. Another pair of Jehovah's Witnesses walked down the road from the north and got into the big van parked in our driveway. Then another set from the south. We live out in the country, so they must have trucked 3 pairs together to cover more ground in less time. More fool them, no one was going anywhere today. Our road had a fair number of lot of houses on it, but it's surrounded by fields, so the other Jehovah's Witnesses had nowhere to go. After an hour and a half, the 2 men inside had heard enough and managed to push past Dad to the door. Dad was perfectly fine with that. It was a beautiful day outside, and he could finish his point outside. The 2 men, visibly pale and unable to leave our porch, realized they would not be able to leave without actually saying it. One interrupted my dad to say goodbye. Unfortunately, his word choice was open to interpretation, and Dad started in on the end times and how it pertained to their beliefs. The 2 men stared at each other, fear and frustration in their eyes, then turned and fast walked to their van. Dad followed, climbed into their van, introduced himself to the other Jehovah's Witnesses there, and continued his discussion for another hour. Finally, one of the men physically dragged him out of the van, slammed the door shut, and leaped back in as they peeled out and roared away, 2.5 hours after they arrived. The cherry on top was a conversation just a few days later, though. One of my dad's friends called him. He lived a few miles up the road from us. He hadn't heard about what had happened, and while he too enjoys long discussions, he had a legitimate appointment he had to get to. However, he mentioned that he had a friend who'd love to talk with them. Their faces lit up. They needed a win. He wrote down our address and handed it to the men. Their faces went from joy to stark fear, and they immediately said their goodbyes, fled for their van, and raced away, leaving my dad's friend scratching his head. As far as I know, the Jehovah's Witnesses have never visited either neighborhood again. And our last story. Crazy lady demands I be fired because I am possessed. So a bit of backstory. I have Tourette's. Not going to elaborate on this because I really don't like talking about it, but it's vital for context. Also, I'm not on mobile for this. Cast. Me, myself, EM, entitled mom, HK, her kid who I would assume is around 11 or 12, my boss, RD, random dude. This happened several months ago. So I work at a grocery store and I'm a cashier there, and I've worked there for almost 2 years. So I was having kind of a bad day because my tics were kind of flared up, but nobody ever asked about it and nobody ever seemed to notice somehow. At least until this point. QEM. Me. Hi, how are you today? EM. Pretty good, I guess. It started off pretty normal. I noticed her kid was wearing a uniform for what I assumed was a private school. Then she notices my tic. EM. What are you doing? Me. I have Tourette's. I can't control this. EM. I'm asking you to stop. Me. I can't control this. This is out of my reach. EM starts breaking down, pleading with me not to hurt them. Me. What are you talking about? EM. Jesus, please forgive me. Me. My boss's name. Can you please come over here? HK. Mom, what's going on? Sir, what did you do to her? Me. I didn't do anything. I have no idea what's happening. My boss by this point has made his way over to me, I'm not even sure if it's because I called him over because this woman was making a scene. My boss. Ma'am, what seems to be the problem? EM. You need to fire him right now. Me. EM. You can't hire people who are possessed, and he needs to be fired. HK, I think, realized his mom was being borderline nuts and starts trying to get her less angry. Mom, he said he has a medical condition, and he can't control it. The woman was ape crap at this point, making sure she could tell everyone she could that this store had a possessed person working here. When this didn't work, she turned back to my boss and me, who were both still dumbfounded, mainly my boss because he was very new and had started a little over a week ago. When her yelling at people I was possessed didn't work, this happened. EM. I demand all of my items be free of charge, and this demon-controlled person be fired. My boss, still trying to keep his composure. Ma'am, we can't just make everything free. He isn't possessed. Me. Thank you. HK. Mom, can we please leave? You're making a scene and embarrassing me. My boss. Ma'am, can you please just calm down? EM. Calm down? Calm down? Don't you tell me to calm down. You have a possessed employee, and you're telling me to calm down? I'm calling the police. HK. No, Mom, please. I just want to leave. She proceeded to pull her phone out, and at this time, random dude walks up. RD. Ma'am, I'm an off-duty police officer. What can I assist you with? EM, sounding very winded. Sir, please help me. There's a demon-possessed employee here, and nobody will fire him. RD. Ma'am, I don't know what you're on, but this man here is clearly not possessed. Me. I have Tourette's. Jesus Christ, I can't control it. This is uncomfortable and embarrassing as hell, and you're not helping. RD. Now, you can leave here and now and nothing happens, or I could write you up and arrest you. EM. For what? I haven't done anything wrong. RD. Well, let's see. Verbal assault, harassment, destruction of property as things have been knocked over, rioting and inciting a riot, loitering. This list could go on. Do you want me to continue? EM, realizing she's effed. No, officer, we're just leaving. EM drags her kid out of the store. Once she's gone, RD turns to me and my boss and says, and I will never forget his words, RD said, I'm not really a cop. I don't pretend to be a cop, but that woman was really pissing me off. Also, my boss quit the next week. Random dude is the bomb. That's awesome. I'm glad he realized the situation and stood up for you. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.